Welcome, everyone, to the Marion Street Capital Huddle, the future of intelligent company performance, where we are featuring Skill Cycle. I want to remind everyone that this discussion will be recorded, and then a link to the recording will be emailed to each of you at the end of the recording. There's going to be a Q&A session at the end, on the last 10 minutes of the panel, for our expert panelists to answer any questions that you may have. So I want to remind everyone that there's a Q&A box where you can submit all your questions. And with that, I want to get started with introducing our group of amazing panelists that we were able to secure for this amazing conversation that we're going to have. So Christy, why don't you get us started with number one, why are you interested in this topic? Why is this topic timely for you and timely to discuss right now?
Awesome.
And then a little bit of background on yourself.
Awesome. Will do. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Christy McCann Flynn. I am CEO and co-founder of Skill Cycle. So why is this all important to me? I am a former HR veteran for roughly 20 years who worked in enterprise, mid-markets, and startups. Seen a lot of the good, seen a lot of bad, and seen a lot of the ugly. And so I like to say that I had a good nervous breakdown, ironically, 6 months before COVID, or truly would have had a breakdown still being in HR. So thank you to all of our HR comrades who survived that, and started, an organization called Skill Cycle, because the pains that I endured out there had a lot to do, not just with people, but the systems, and trying to make them work together, the work and flow with people, that creates really great outcomes. And so I just had so many systems, so many point solutions, so many spreadsheets, so many bottles of wine trying to put those spreadsheets together. I hated them. My employees hated them. Everybody hated them. And so I left it all to create what is now Skill Cycle, which you'll learn more about. So thank you.
Jim, let's go with you.
Yeah, well, first, thank you all for joining, and thank you for having me on the panel. I'm Jim Stallings. I'm the founder of PS27 Ventures. We're an early stage venture capital fund. We're in Florida. We like things that are in financial services or fintech. We like CPG companies. We like software service-based business models. And we invest all over the country. And we have a thesis that's really built around the founder. We honestly, we care very little about what industry. We care a lot about the founder's leadership, their skills, their ability to adapt and focus and attract high quality teams around them. Our typical check size is around $500,000 or up to $1 million, and we participate in seed rounds up to Series A. And I'm fascinated with this space because I've been in leadership roles my entire career, and I've seen and witnessed this lack of leadership for employees and workers and colleagues. And I'm very interested in finding solutions for leaders, for managers, so that they can develop, coach, and drive performance, but also help people achieve their business goals. And I've seen the lack of it, and I'm interested in Skill Cycle and solutions like this.
Thanks, Jim. Sushma, let's go with you. You're muted.
Joshua, you're muted. Sorry.
There you go.
Sorry. Good evening, everyone. Here's a little something about me. I started my career in HR with an offshoot of IBM, and then with Citibank, where I was exposed to global performance assessment systems. And I will tell you that some of these were fantastic systems. And yet, when you look at the industry today, and you see how discombobulated some of the HR systems are, it just kind of pains me a lot. And what I think Skill Cycle is doing is trying to piece some of these things together and make HR systems seamless. But here's what I do for a living. I started my life in HR, and then I moved into sales, from sales to strategy, strategy to being CEO of companies. And that's what I did up until 2019, where I ran global companies. And today I'm a partner in a venture capital firm in Philadelphia called Rittenhouse Ventures, where we invest in B2B SaaS companies, technology companies, largely in digital health. HR tech is a very large component of our portfolio. And we do things with anything in tech. We like companies that have proven their solution and are capital efficient, which means people should be able to do a lot with little. So that's the thesis of Rittenhouse. In addition to this, I sit on the boards of Ben Franklin Technology Partners, and I mentor a ton of people, specifically women founders. And I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Sushma. Hiba, let's go with you.
Amazing. I'm Hiba Yusuf. I'm the Chief People Officer over at Workweek. We're a creator-led media company with about 8 brands underneath our umbrella, with one of them being a brand I founded with Workweek called I Hate It Here. It's all about workplaces, how to make them better, and what HR people are really struggling to do to modernize their workplaces. It comes out twice a week, and it's just full of great advice. I spend a lot of my time looking at how do we think about HR in an innovative way when we're given sometimes very little resources and really need to rethink the future of a company. How do we do that in a scalable and successful way? So I'm really excited to be here. I'm very deeply passionate about what Skill Cycle is doing and what the future of performance management looks like.
And then last but not least, Nicola.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm Nicola Porter-Smith. I'm the VP of HR at Jaw, which is a digital wholesale platform that helps fashion brands and retailers drive their sales growth. I've worked in HR for around 15 years, about 5 of those in the tech industry, previous to that in the sports events and merchandising world, very different world to the tech industry. I am so happy to be part of this conversation. I think, if we are expecting our employees to be performing, to be working efficiently, we need to surround them with efficient tools in order to be able to do that. And having outdated tools or tools that don't talk to each other, or having a ton of different ones that people have to dive in and out of, just doesn't help us. And so often performance and any kind of performance management drops and just doesn't work. So excited to be able to see what Skill Cycle are doing. I've known Christy for about 6 years now and have seen their company grow. And it's just really exciting to be a part of this as well.
Thank you all. All right, so as you can see, we have an awesome panel today. So I want to dive a little bit into the topics that we're going to cover. We're going to cover 4 main areas. Trends within SaaS human capital. Then we're going to talk about human capital pain points in organizations. We'll focus then on the crowded market of point solutions. And then lastly, we will listen to some investment insights from Sushma, Jim, and then additional insights from the rest of the panel. So let's get started. So our topic today is integrating talent development with performance management. That's where we wanted to focus our conversation today. The statistics in this slide show the importance of integrating that performance management and that talent development, but they also show some gaps in how this integration being done, and some companies may suffer for that. So I will give you a few seconds to process these stats before I ask the question. Okay, so Hiba, let's start with you. How successfully do you think companies are currently executing on performance management, and why, if they're successful or unsuccessful?
I think most companies are actually really struggling with performance management. I hear it from a lot of HR leaders personally that they feel like It's just something they have to do, but the results that they get out of it don't actually help the organization. And I think a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to do performance management and don't actually get the results they want, which is a better and deeper understanding of an employee's growth areas and opportunity for growth.
Got it. Nicola, what do you think? How successfully do you think most companies are at executing?
Yeah, I totally agree with Hiba. And I think some of the problems that we're seeing is that we are so dependent on other people, and our employees actually being involved in the performance management process is not just about the tools around them, but them actually dedicating their time, managers dedicating their skill set in order to help their employees grow. And so unless we have effective managers, unless we have the tools around us in order to help and support them, it's always something that gets pushed to the sideline. And so then we get this massive scramble at the end of the year when we have to do end of year reviews and things like that, where people are just like, oh my gosh, I've not had a feedback conversation, I've not been focused on this. When ultimately this is something that should just be continuously happening throughout the year. So I totally agree. I think everybody's struggling. In my network too, is everybody saying, you know, we hate performance reviews, we hate doing anything like that. We're trying to move to a continuous feedback model, but it's hard because you've got to bring everybody along for that journey. And no matter how great we are as leaders in helping them to get there, we're just as good as the tools around us as well in order to help people to actually do the job themselves as well.
It's great that you bring that up because we're going to touch upon that later in this conversation. But yeah, those are great insights. So I want to read a statistic that we found. So the global adoption rate for core HR software is expected to reach 60% by 2025, up from 46% in 2021. So Jim, you are a battle-scarred investor in the HR software and other industries, and you also have been a leader of multiple companies. So in your opinion, what are some key factors that drive enterprises to adopt performance management tools? What's the point at which they say we need to adopt these sophisticated performance management tools? And there's a two-pronged question, and
okay,
I'll repeat the second part later if you need to. But is this trend gathering the attention from investors that it deserves?
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly battle scarred, I'll tell you that. But I've learned a couple things about the space. It is growing. Just to answer the question, and companies and CEOs, large and small, are recognizing that with the advent of technology to come in and manage so much work. Just think of sales management pipeline. That used to be done by humans. When I was in the IBM company, there were 3 layers of management in sales. And there were lots of role models. There were lots of successful people you could emulate. You know, what was their technique? They would actually transition you to customer accounts. That's all been hollowed out with technology. You basically load up your customer names, that you load up your LinkedIn page, you load up your Facebook page, and you go to work. There's just no environment. There's no way to coach, mentor, touch people, and transfer knowledge. Companies understand that. In the pursuit of profits, a lot of the organizations have been delayered. A lot of the functional support staffs have been cut. So employees come into these new environment that move very fast, and they have very little support. And companies recognize this. Now, you lay on top of that, you send everybody home for 2-3 years, and they come back and recognize that the employees are hurting, and they leave. The employees leave the company. So there's an enormous amount of focus now at the top of companies and mid-sized companies on retention. You know, how do we keep people in my company? Because I've spent the money to train them, and 18 months after I've trained them, all of that investment is walked out the door to go help another company. So the motivator right now is return on investment. I've attracted great talent. I've trained them, and now they're gone. So the replacement for that, or at least the help for managers, is performance management. How do I connect with my team? How do I bond with my team? How do I motivate the team? How do I reward the team? And do it in a way to where people feel good and not just a number. So management's waking up to this, and they recognize it's a combination of people and technology. People want to know how they're performing, and they want to be able to view that in a way that illustrates and communicates in a form that they can understand. But they don't want that to be the only thing. They want to be able to talk to people virtually or in person at any time and get feedback at any time, because businesses are moving at light speed, and you can't wait to the end of a quarter or end of a year to find out. In most cases, employees long gone.
Sushma, Sushma, giving your insight on, is this trend garnering the attention that it deserves from investors?
I certainly think so. Okay, so there are two things that investors are looking at. Number one, I alluded in my opening remarks about how a lot of the HR systems don't really integrate with each other. So I know there are a lot of point solutions. Some of these point solutions do things that they're supposed to do, but do not talk to other aspects of the HR system. So building integrated systems is a very key component. So let's look at what Skill Cycle is doing, right? Skill Cycle is doing two things, which is very important. One is the performance assessment part of it, but then they're also mixing it with the coaching element. And in a lot of enterprises, you do not have that kind of linkage. Next step could be, how do you actually link this to monetary rewards? How could you link this to the overall employee experience? And to Jim's point, you have to be able to provide the right kind of inputs to make sure that employees, like customers, have the best experience possible. So an investor is looking at, number one, does a solution tackle a particular problem in an organization, and is it large enough a problem? And then once the problem is tackled, does it integrate to other elements of HR? So that's point number one that I want to make. And the second point is actually something that Jim mentioned about why there is an overwhelming need for right performance management systems. And to a large extent, it's the changing demographic of the employee or the workforce. Many years ago, we had monolithic employees who worked in one place, they lived in the place, they showed up for work. Today, we live in an environment where workforce is distributed. Workforce is often distributed across countries. People work in remote locations. And more importantly, people are coming in multiple different grains. There are permanent employees, there are part-time employees, people who are there for a particular gig, and we are moving towards the gig economy. All of this is, I think, heightening the need for the right kind of systems. And obviously, as a venture capitalist, we would follow where there's going to be maximum adoption of a particular technology or a system.
That makes sense. that's usually right. That's where venture capital focuses. A lot of momentum, right? The momentum factor of investment. So Christy, I will play this demo video of Skill Cycle. while I ask you this question. But Christy, as the CEO and founder of SkillCycle, SkillCycle is a platform that offers the ability for companies to integrate that performance management and the talent development aspect for companies. Why is it so important for the modern employer to integrate these two? Obviously, this has been shared, but what's your perspective here?
Yeah, I'll give you my perspective of why I had my, good nervous breakdown. And, as a former HR person, and then I'll give you my perspective now as a CEO of an HR tech platform. A lot of the platforms that were out there that are built, monolithic, point solutions, fragmented, were built based on theories, from Jack Welch and others, 1950s, 1960s, that they just threw on a platform and said, there you go, HR, have fun. We just automated everything for you. Nobody put any thought, into all the different things within people and processes and what that means with the flow of work, what that means in regards to change, what that means as far as our evolution. No thought whatsoever. I should not have 10 systems to do my job and nor should the employees. It's why people processes get canned. And it's because they're just point solutions and they're not connected. So if you're just to look at this in a brass tacks way, why the hell would you give somebody a report card, i.e. performance management reviews, and then not give them any learning? It's stupid, right? And then how are you supposed to connect all that feedback that you get, whether you're a company of 100, 1,000, 10,000, doesn't matter, into individual development plans? I already had 1,000 jobs in HR, right? And so performance reviews come around. First thing I was doing was booking vacation immediately after performance reviews of just the hell that we would go through. But even leading up to it, it's the anxiety. Nobody's prepared to give the feedback. A lot of people don't have the skills. We look at performance management as being people who suck and don't know how to do their jobs. No, they don't. Everybody within an organization has a skills gap. And it's really about understanding your skills assessment and understanding what your skills currency is, and then how to be able to bridge that. And so if you're going to give feedback that it becomes actionable and it drives into people's goals, their roles, and the performance feedback, whether it's formal and informal at any point in time, so that we're proactive and we're not sitting there getting, punched in the face in April and October, like, oh, your communication skills are terrible. I've been thinking about this for months. Well, why the hell didn't you tell me? Right. I went months without having this improvement and looking stupid and probably upsetting more people. So it's about being in the moment. It's about making it actionable. It's about having an interoperability. It's about taking goals and performance and engagement, all the tenets of what makes organizations flow, but then driving it into learning to keep them flowing so they don't keep on stopping. And that's what happens. And this is a very active way instead of being passive. Hopefully that helped. Sorry, I'm very loud about this. 20 years was way too long of dealing with this. So God bless my husband for letting me have this nervous breakdown to start this company with everything I had.
Thanks for that, Christy. That's why you're here, right? You're passionate about this topic.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to shift to the pain points in human capital. I want to take a few seconds to take out this slide. And then I'm going to read this statistic that we uncovered. So in a Gartner survey conducted to tech CEOs, 73% of respondents indicated that they increased budget for AI-related expenses across various verticals, including HR, to address human capital challenges. Before we dive into this whole discussion, Hiba, why don't you mention the most prominent human capital challenge that you've seen in the past 12 months for companies?
This is so hard because I could think of like 5 challenges. I'm like, can I list all of them? No, just kidding. I think one of the biggest one is just like lack of time. A lot of people are expected to do more with less. And a lot of places are saying, well, like you can use AI and now you can get so much more done. But I don't actually think people understand how to implement AI in HR and how they can use it effectively and what is a good use of AI and what isn't. And so I think right now, like the most valuable asset anyone has is time. And I actually think a human capital challenge is we aren't good at managing our time and there isn't enough time to do all the things that we need to get done.
Got it.
Yeah, I would
Cool.
definitely agree there too. I mean, it's it's the time, but it's also the change, right? Because like AI is really hyped up right now, you know, Altman and everything else is doing. AI has actually been around for a while. And, you know, there have been HR tools that I've used in the past, and I'm sure Nicola can attest to this to all that, you know, in recruiting and, you know, even in some form of performance management. And it's just bias. And it goes back to what Shushma has said before. If you don't have the correct inputs, you're not going to have the correct outputs. And so when I walked into an office in New York City back in 2018, and they're all a bunch of, young white dudes and there's no diversity, I'm just like, what tool are we using? And they were using a specific tool and the tool was telling them what to do. And then I ended up with an office of 200 white guys, no offense to white guys, but, we're in New York City and it gets out of hand. So I think it's a time, but it's also a trust issue as to, making sure you have the right inputs to be able to get the right outputs.
So
I completely agree with that too. I'll just add one point there as well. I think to add on to what Hiba was saying, a lot of people are playing that player coach role now too. And so they're putting less emphasis on the management side. And that's almost like a by part of it. But in order for us to be able to develop and grow, you need that manager support too. And so if they haven't got manager support, they haven't got support from the systems that they're using, they haven't got anything, they're just kind of sitting there and la. No wonder people aren't able to kind of grow and develop as well. So there's a time piece, there's the player coach piece, and then obviously not really understanding how to use the tools too.
So I just, can I say something, Andres?
of course.
So I just want to put a statement out there specific to AI. I'm a huge believer in human intelligence aided by artificial intelligence and not the other way around, right? Specifically, I think what most enterprises and a lot of people in HR are grappling with. So there is fear, there is apprehension, but there's also fear of missing out. Okay, so there's a large FOMO built into this. So people are really thinking, how do I make it happen? And I'm beginning to see some very clever use of AI, which is helping people. And I'm happy, if I get a chance, I'll talk more about it. So AI for good is actually a good thing. And I think a lot of the HR folks over time would be the ones who would be the flag bearers of, ushering AI into organizations, because I think they are uniquely positioned to combat some of this apprehension and FOMO.
I have a question though there for you, Sushma. And sorry, Andres, I know we're probably going a little bit off topic, but I think it's relevant.
That's the idea.
I think it's important for every HR person, out there, but not only that, employees to really understand, because when I look at AI, of maybe a couple of years ago into where it's today, that just to put it in brass tacks, AI is only as good as we are, right? And it's a mirror of us. And so when everybody talks about, AI saving the world, I'm just like, well, if we don't have the skills to do our jobs, then how the hell is AI going to do that, right? And I think we're at this inflection point too, where we have to understand the reality, because, it's going to become a perceived assumption, especially for employees, that I don't need to learn this, AI will do. Well, no, not really. Yes, it can enable you and it, potentially even replace some things. But I guess, Shushma, what are your thoughts on that? Especially when it comes to your expertise around that and what the implications for HR and even for employees.
So I think going back to my point of fear, apprehension, FOMO, I think HR should embrace this and train everybody. Why shouldn't organizations give a, so I was at a meeting about a couple of months ago where the governor of New Jersey he's like the biggest cheerleader for AI, and he's training everybody in the government to know the rudiments and the fundamentals of AI. So I think it's a new language, it's a new concept. I think one of the key things that organizations should be doing is not rushing to adopt, but they should definitely be rushing to educate and increase awareness.
Yep.
Does
And
that answer
optimize.
your question, Christy?
Yeah. No, it's definitely in line because I think there's just like everybody has FOMO, but then you don't think, right? And we need to be thoughtful here because then we end up paying the price and so do our employees. So.
All right. I want to switch. So this conversation has been really insightful so far. And then I'm sure there's going to be questions and even some contributions at the end of the session from some of the attendees. But I want to switch to the market of point solutions because we are slowly going into that portion. Yeah. So let's take a look at these stats on this slide. So the HR tech landscape is highly active. There are several companies offering specialized solutions for various HR functions, and then this proliferation of point solutions frustrates their users. For instance, there's more than 80% organizations that pay for at least 3 HR solutions, with some paying for 6, 8, 10, 12, like Christy was mentioning. So, Hiba, what are some of the most common challenges that companies face when they rely on multiple point solutions rather than, a more integrated approach, let's say, Skill Cycle?
I think you just end up with really fragmented data and a bunch of systems that don't talk to each other, and also a terrible employee experience because the employees are always going to ask, what should I be logging into? Where do I need to be doing that? How do I do this? And honestly, it's a waste of my time as HR to spend hours answering all of those questions. And then also I waste all my time trying to work across 10 systems. And so I think of it always from 2 lenses, like how does this impact me as HR? And then how does it impact the employees? And I really do believe like this generation of 15 systems, it's just too much. We're like in the attention economy. We have limited attention from our employees. And if they are spending their time trying to figure out what system they have to log in to do something, it's just going to waste more time. And they're going to get frustrated really fast and let you know.
Yeah. Jim, I want your so you've been leader at several companies, and I'm sure as in a leadership position, you have to deal with multiple systems and solutions, not only HR, but since this is HR, but outside of that, you have a lot of point solutions. What challenges have you faced?
Yeah, we used to call this application creep. Mm-hmm. Which is, it's only another, $1,900 a month. And before you know it, you get, 10 of those $1,900 a month, and it's 20,000. Or then you need another application in cyber to make sure you're not leaking. So, I mean, so companies, the forcing function now is affordability from the top. We just can't afford it, and particularly in the big companies. So it's requiring companies to be one or the other. Now I'm speaking as an investor. You're either a feature on someone else's platform or you are a platform. That's how you survive. That's the only way to survive in today's buying and consumer buying environment. So companies are now saying, whose platform do you integrate with? Or are you a platform that's holistic and broad enough to where you can capture many different functions within HR? And that's the requirement. Now, I just want to comment on something that others have said. We've all been trained. All the generation now that's showing up for work have been trained on Apple phones, the iPhone, Facebook, Netflix, Google searches, and they're used to things being intuitive, easy to use, responsive, available 24/7. And by the way, colorful and interesting. So if you don't have a platform or a feature that doesn't have those attributes, you're not going to get any time. So companies are now looking for platforms, features that integrate, but also have the performance characteristics of consumer products that are out there today. So those are the driving functions that require companies like SkillCycle. I've got to be a platform. I need to be a platform. I need to be broad enough. I need to be able to integrate in some of the larger things that are out there as well, but also got to have this intuitive feel. If I've got to read the manual or actually read the software acceptance criteria, if I got to do that, I'm not going to use your solution. So hopefully that helps.
That helps a lot. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I agree. It's just in general. That's why stuff gets ripped out. I mean, I remember being in HR and Nicola and Hiba, I think you could attest to this, is that employees aren't using something. I need budget for something else. Let's rip it out and even see if they notice. 9 out of 10 times they don't notice. And it was an easy way in order to, like, you know, make change. But then there's the evolution as to, all right, what are you going to do now? You know what I mean? That you've gotten rid of this nonsense, and what are you going to bring in that's actually going to help you and your employees with the problems? And I think that's an opportunity where I think that everybody is at, because, you know, you gotta, if you're not engaging people with the things that you're putting out there, then you're done. And it especially within HR tech, it needs to be put to that lens. It's not about what HR wants. It's about HR serves employees at the end of the day, the company, the leadership, the organization. It serves everybody. So making sure that, you know, you have something that is personalized, individualized, that drives of what's in it for me, with clear outcomes that are win-win for both the arms that HR serves, the leadership and the management and the employees, because that's how you make a nice holistic, you know, strategy and, you know, go forward state.
I'll just quickly add to that as well. I think when you have so many different tools to use and so many different solutions, like Hiba said, the data, it just doesn't work. And trying to pull that data together and make sense of it doesn't work. And then you're trying to show the ROI for these platforms, but you don't have the data behind it to do so. So you can't really fight for it. So then you get things pulled away that actually were just trying to help you a little bit as a HR leader. So when you combine it all together and you get tools where maybe AI helps you to pull that data or make suggestions or just help you to drive people into the system and increase the ROI of it, it helps us as leaders in HR to be able to prove its worth. And I think that's where we've always struggled, is how can we spend money knowing that we don't necessarily always get given the biggest budgets as well.
Nicola, so I have a question. You've been you're a repeat buyer of SkillCycle.
Sure.
I would like to understand, or if you have some examples of how SkillCycle's integrated approach has simplified HR processes for the companies in which you've integrated this platform.
Yeah, so I've been with SkillCycle since the very beginning, so I've seen it evolve over time in terms of a product. And going from when it was Go Coach and it was purely a coaching platform, which was already really great to use, to where it is now, it's amazing to see in such a short period of time. I went through actually a demo of the new AI function within it, which we named to be confirmed how you say it. And it blew my mind to the point of coaching for me has always been so huge on my agenda for employees and assisting and helping them. And when you can build that in as part of somebody's kind of overall performance and the conversations they're having their one-to-ones, the updates they're making to their goals, it all ties everything up into a really nice holistic view of how this person can actually grow and develop. And so it's bringing in different tools within the one platform to be able to drive that person's growth. So for me, just seeing it skill cycle evolve over time is just incredible to see. And right now I can see how it can actually tick a lot of the boxes of what we're looking for in terms of being able to host many things in one platform, but also provide that extra cherry on top where it's actually doing the thing that we're talking about, where it's suggesting the tool that people can use in order to help with their growth. It's suggesting coaches that may be able to help them as well from a human point of view and touch as well. So it's been pretty incredible to see that, and I'm really excited to continue to use it.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big thing is that, and I'm sure Nicola and Hiba can attest this, nobody's really asked us what we wanted. Nobody. I don't remember anybody calling me, you know, I mean, in my 20-year career, you know, what do you think we should build for you and why? I'm dead serious. I mean, Nicola, has anybody ever called you?
No, never. I've had to seek it all the time.
Nope.
Yeah, and this is naughty, especially for Shushma and Jim. You guys are investors. That's the most important part, right? You know, it's not just about having a theory and research about what you're building. It's also, you know, unfortunately, when you're in battle and you're dealing with this stuff, like, you know, I mean, you don't have any ability to get feedback. I mean, it's not good. And so, you know, yeah, I have a lot of experience in HR, and so does my co-founder, Rebecca. But the people who've really built this organization, and this was the most powerful part, especially as we were evolving over the years, from GoCo to Skill Cycle, is customers. I wasn't moving without them, because look, I'm old now, I'm dated, you know, I haven't been in HR now for 5 years. Even my experience doesn't matter anymore. What matters is about what's going on and having a voice to say. And so, like, every employee out there wants to have a voice and wants to have the learning and development of tools to be able to do their job. Well, guess what? HR is an employee too, and so do we. And so if you're going to build something, you know, I mean, you need to be looking at it through our lens and not saying that it's HR. We can't fix HR. It's why you don't have a seat at the table. Go to hell. That's not right. You haven't built the right things for us because you never asked us. And that was really infuriating. I mean, that's, and I think that's important because it's also about the end user, which is the employee. Nobody has asked them either. Go do this. Why? Well, just because.
Christy,
no.
So Chrissy, I have a take on it.
Yeah.
See, every employee is a consumer at some level or the other. Okay, you could be working for University of Pennsylvania, but you are also a consumer at one of the retail stores. I think this whole confluence of employee experience with customer experience is an extraordinarily empowering one for HR professionals.
Yeah.
And you know, having been an HR professional, I can tell you that I didn't wait for somebody to come and tell me what to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's our God-given right to basically question and put the perspective into senior management. And that's what is extremely exciting to me about AI. If we can actually create a band of HR people, because a lot of the fear around AI in HR and in organizations is about, is it going to make me lose my job? Am I going to be losing my job to a robot? Or am I going to be rendering myself inconsequential and irrelevant? For all of these, there's a positive element of things saying, go get yourself trained. Why in God's name are organizations being such, you know, laggards when it comes to training every one of their employees on the potential of technology? So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but you got me going there, Christy, and I had to come up with my, you know, HR is the champion of change, and I think now's the moment for HR to sort of take that baton and run with it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And no, I feel that we're on a cusp of a lot of different things, and it's not just the technology, but it's also people like Hiba and Nicola on this call, right? Because they are the next generation of HR, and it's not just about what was done in the past, it's about what's being done now and how they're influencing, that strategy, not within just within their organizations, but in general within, this huge, vast group of professionals that are out there. And that's what I'm most enamored about. And having people like, Hiba and Ekla, especially really pushing that wave to educate, be proactive, look at things differently, to have a voice. And that's the most empowering thing right now. And so, I don't know if Nicola, if you ever want to say anything on that, I know you got a lot of PR recently based on your voice, and so
Got a lot of hot takes about that, apparently. I mean, I was featured in that New York Times article about HR being miserable, which was very eye-opening to see a picture of yourself under the word miserable when you would probably describe yourself as like a very happy person. So it was a little alarming to see that, but it was a really interesting article about why HR is so hard. And it talked a lot about the fact that like at the core of everything we do is the people, and each one of us is unique and different. And it proves to be very challenging when you're looking to solutions that are one size fits all, especially echoing what Jim said, like the next generation is looking for personalization. And so now we're in this seat where we're trying to solve problems, but also personalize our solutions. And we're feeling like the solutions that are out there don't actually allow us to do that. And I think that like watching where HR tech is going and what HR leaders are going to be able to do really excites me, because I feel like for so long we haven't been given the tools that we want or are built that are in ways that are helpful for us. And I'm seeing this next wave of companies, Christy, what you are building at Skill Cycle is former HR leaders building it. If you look at some of the biggest HR companies, there are people who have never worked in HR who are determining how we do work. And that's not how we actually do our day-to-day. And so I think that is just like exciting to me as well. And I think HR is having its moment. We're having a moment where I think people are looking to us and they're like, we want to take you all much more seriously. We're seeing the path of a lot. In the past, it used to be looking to the CFO. Now I think we look to the CFO, but we also look to our chief people officer to ask, well, how is this going to impact our culture? Because we know that's going to impact our bottom line.
Yeah, people are starting to listen. I think it's interesting you said earlier, no one's picked up the phone and called us and asked what we wanted, but now we're actually saying out loud in many different platforms, this is what we want, like listen to us. And I think there was a shift when the pandemic happened, and we as leaders in HR had to really come together and support each other. And then we will realize, oh, wow, we're a really awesome group of people here, and we have a lot of influence. And so now we're using that influence and that voice in order to be heard. And so platforms like this are starting to come up where they're actually hearing our needs and satisfying them. So I think it's awesome. We're on a really cool wave at the moment. And Hiba's newsletter is the best thing I read it all week. I love it.
I'm honored.
Second segue into these statistics that we uncovered. Let's take a look. Let's pause for final time here to review these two charts.
A lot of money, man.
Right?
It's mind-boggling. There's so much investment going into HR.
We were pleasantly surprised that in what most would describe as a tough venture environment, $2.2 billion changed hands across 114 deals. That's an average of $20 million per deal.
And you asked Jim and I why we are interested in that space.
Exactly. That's where my questions go.
Well, so, I think the thing is that it's a lot, right? Yeah. And so, like, the wave is happening in HR, the wave is happening in HR tech. And I like the way that Jim said it. Are you a feature or a platform, right? Because at least in my mind, anybody can build a feature. I mean, I know in HR, we build features every single day for everything that we needed. And so I think the core thing is, what outcome are you driving? So Jim and Shishma, what do you guys think?
Yeah, Shishma, you go first.
So outcomes are everything. But I would say in the era that we lived in, and to the point that Hiba made, experience is paramount. So today, whether you're an employee or a consumer, you are equipped with so much choice. You decide who you work for, you decide how you're going to shop, you decide who you're going to shop with. Convenience is paramount, right? So in that kind of an environment, and in an environment where technology is so accessible, why be a slave to clunky systems that mars communication and mars experience? This is what baffles me, okay? Because every C-suite person will nod their head very vigorously when you say this. And yet, it doesn't translate in terms of their actions. How long does it take? I mean, $2.2 billion. It just tells you that there is this crying need for two things. There's a crying need for point solutions, but there's also a crying need to integrate these point solutions. Otherwise, you will be just deluged with point solutions that proliferate.
Yes.
Over to you, Jim.
Yeah. Well, I think this is just indicative, and investors are just saying, look, there's a pivot that's happening. And the way I explain it is this: when we make our seed investment in a company, no matter what amount it is, half of it goes to marketing to find new customers. And they spend an enormous amount of that first check on identifying what we call ICP, ideal customer profile. An enormous amount. They track every click onto the website, every click on the Facebook. I mean, and they harvest the data, they hire marketing agencies to analyze the data, they rank and stack the customers, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of the day, they know every customer, when, how, market value. They put them in cohorts. They track it through total value of the customer over some period of time. And how much does the customer cost? CAC, right? That's millions of dollars go into that. The question is, how much money goes into understanding our people?
Yeah.
And are they ideally fit for the job that they're in, the company that they're in, the market that they're in, the role, et cetera? We don't. And investors and others, managers beginning to recognize that if this is about talent, first round draft picks is what I want. How do I find them? And when I find them, how do I keep them? How do I plug them into the right thing? So there's been very little investment. Now, we know our customers, believe me, because as an investor, I'm yelling at the teams, go find customers and really understand them, and only find the good ones, by the way. Get rid of the bad ones, keep the good ones. All right. We don't do that. We don't use the data, and the data is there about employees. The platforms are there. So I think that's why the number is what it is because corporations are looking for tools to bring talent in, train the talent, keep the talent. Otherwise, you're going to get beat by first round draft picks on the other side, not the other way around. So I'm not surprised at this, and I'm not surprised at the investment. I think it's going to go up, honestly.
I was going to add exactly that. I mean, I am not an investor, but I would just like to add, as somebody who watches this space very closely, we are trying to solve really complicated problems at work, from engagement to communication to hybrid and remote work. And the current software we have does not actually solve those problems. It solves the problems of 10 years ago. And I think as we're looking to people investing in HR tech specifically, you have to be really smart about like what problems you're trying to solve, because a lot of the old solutions are no longer solving them. I talk to HR leaders all day long. They don't want another HRIS. They want something that's going to fix their engagement problem, that's going to help their managers give better feedback, that's going to provide growth to their employees. And so I think this space is only going to grow, which excites me as an HR person, because I think we need new solutions that are better equipped to deal with the problems we're actually facing today.
Very well said, Heba.
I want to shift to the Q&A section for these next few minutes. I want to remind our audience to send in questions if you have any. But let's start with one from Lauren. Can you share some of the key business metrics that you use to measure whether your performance management processes are effective? Christy, why don't we get started with you, and then we'll go with Nicola.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to hear from Heba and Nicola because they're been in HR, but I can tell you what I use, and CEO right now is that, like, we've been using our platform since we started making it, right? And we're a remote company. We've always been remote, even before COVID. I don't believe in boxing talent out because of where they live. I just think that that's absolutely crazy. And so, it's become part of, our everyday, because it is our everyday as we've grown and evolved, and how we communicate and how we engage and how we're hitting our goals. And, that's part of the poison here, is that we took it and it's working, and it's not a poison. It's a huge benefit. That's been a value add. But, as we run out this question, I'd love to hear from Nicola and Heba, because they've been in the seat. And I know I used to get screamed at all the time. I can't see any results. And how has that changed?
I think the biggest measurement for us, I don't even know whether it's a measurement that I love either, is engagement surveys. Like, we ask questions directed specifically towards this, including, I think one of our questions is, I think my performance review, it's fair, or something like that. And we look at those results really closely, but then what we do with that is then actually go deeper and ask people to comment in each department around some of those results, because ultimately someone could be having a bad day, they could just be feeling like they're going to rate it a certain way, but we actually want to know, like, give us the feedback, talk to us in a way that's real. Some employees will, some employees won't. So a lot of it is still conversational. But our engagement surveys are something that we have to put more emphasis towards in order to get that data and to be able to measure it. And then often it's again, the usage of the system, and people actually, putting their goals in the system, updating their goals in the system, actually putting growth goals in the system, and ways in which they're kind of actually marking them off as achieved or not. But again, the system's sometimes a bit broken, and so you have people going in there hating the way it looks, hating the way they use it, so they come out of the system. And so again, it's quite fragmented, but a lot of the work that I have to do to measure it is purely still by conversation and just digging in with managers and digging in with employees, which takes time, but ultimately I'd rather have that real feedback.
Sorry, go ahead, Heba.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to say one of the biggest KPIs, indicators, whatever we want to call it, metric, that I paid a lot of attention to as both a practicing HR head as well as a CEO of a company, is how well prepared are you through your performance management system to develop leaders within an organization. To me, that is a single biggest metric. Yes, there are many other things, but as a CEO and as a head of HR, that to me was paramount. And here's how I did it. I would actually compute the cost of recruiting a C-level leader versus building your own. And it is a fantastic metric to track people, to track within an organization, Lauren. Was it Lauren who asked the question? And feel free to reach out. I'm happy to give you, it's not as easy as I'm making it sound, but that to me is a single biggest performance indicator.
Yeah. I think the last thing, and to round this out, because I know we're at time, and want to say a huge thank you to all of our panelists here, and those that attend, and those who are going on Labor Day and are going to be seeing the recording of this, is that the biggest metric is, what it always has been to me, is about people just overall utilization. Because if you're driving some type of utilization and some type of capacity, you've ignited something. And how do you keep that ignited and continue to, really drive that, into much bigger, better things for the person, for the organization, for the department, for the overall group? if you got engaged employees, anything can happen. But again, it's about the inputs and the outputs, and you need to be able to translate that data, because even if the data is bad, all your employees hate working for you and they're, I don't know, quiet quitting, quiet vacationing, whatever the new quiet thing is these days, it really doesn't matter. You at least have a starting point to be able to drive what the things, the tools that they need to do the job, the learning that they need to do, you know, how they're tracking against progression, you know, what's driving them, what's in it for me, where they need to go next. And so the data is a beacon. That has always been my, you know, motto in HR. If I don't have data, don't talk to me. Data is a beacon for us to be able to drive the next outcome. So I think that's it. I think we're exactly at time, Andres. And so thank you so much. I want to thank the panel here. You want to learn more about us, you know, we're all here, and I'm Christy at Skill Cycle, and hopefully you check us out. Thank you again, everyone.